Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Lena Saleh, the Edtech Guru, where we are disrupting edtech and education. All right, let's do this. A few weeks ago, a report was released from the School Superintendents Association, also known as AASA. This report is what to expect for learning for public schools from the National Commission on Student-Centered, Equity-Focused Education. This report was released April 8th, 2021, which I will link below. This group of school superintendents were pulled together from all around the country. You had people from Edmond School District, the Gable Foundation, Ithaca School District, Turnaround for Children, Arizona Department of Education, Metametrics. So you had anyone from large districts to company-focused schools and individuals, nonprofits, presidents of different kinds of companies. The purpose of this report was to see what education needs and will need looking forward to 2025, which we know is quickly approaching right around the corner. The report is quite lengthy at about 26 pages, and the first thing that they start out with is just being a vision for public schools. So what exactly are they looking for? Well, there were three main components of the survey in which they looked at. That's redesigning the system, re-engineering instruction, and then co-authoring learning. And then within that encompassing part of that, they had three main segments. The first one was resources, the second one is culture, and the last one is social, emotional, and cognitive growth. Within the report, they focused on these three main sections about redesigning the school system. The first part of that is the school culture. Within the wheel of school culture, which you can see right here, is the whole learner focused, no learner marginalized, and future driven. So within this focus, this first part of the component of culture, they broke it down to those three segments within each one of these segments. A whole learner focused was focusing on the social, emotional, cognitive, mental health, and trauma-based needs of all learners. And that's going from the learner to the teacher, the learner to the learner, staff to staff, educators to parents and caregivers, and everyone within that system. And that's going to be a place where everyone's curiosities, their gifts and talents are unearthed and encouraged to support love of learning. So untapping into those learners and being able to encourage them and their well-being throughout the lives. Then you have no learner marginalized. So that's all learners. So that's anyone from Black learners to Indigenous to learners of color, anyone who's been historically marginalized. Women, different segments of race, religion, sexual orientation, socioeconomic, and that's just going to make sure that we put them and all these learners together and that we're not just marginalizing based on a certain set of diversity and needs. And then making sure that everything that they do is future driven. Many of the practices that schools see today, we know, were born from the 20th century industrial model of education. So that was really just focusing on outputting workers who could go to the factories and be able to work. Now, we know we've had radical movements and rapid technological advancements over the last even just 5-6 years, and we're continuing to see that at an exponential rate. So they looked at all three of those components. So underneath that category of resources, you have diverse educator pipeline, access to early learning, aligned community resources, and learning accelerators. And so that's making sure that we are redesigning the education system to incorporate all of these resources and making sure we are developing a diverse pipeline. If you spend any time on Clubhouse or really any time on LinkedIn, you'll know that majority of the schools don't really have a diverse pipeline. Teachers overall tend to look a certain way, and that's going to be increasing that pipeline so that the teachers reflect the students in which they interact with. So the students have more of a way to relate with those teachers than just seeing a certain type of teacher. Then you have the social, emotional, and cognitive growth, and that's going to be just really being able to hone in on the data analytics, planning, learning, and evidence of learning. And when you're able to incorporate all of those and overhaul what's been there before, we give different learning styles. We're starting to empower different kinds of schedules and learning calendars and being a little bit more flexible to create greater cognitive, social, emotional, and emotional learning and supporting that as much as possible. So then it goes into the report and starts really diving deep into each one of these components. And so in the whole learner focus, they have 7 specific elements of which they focus on. That's positive development of relationships, environments filled with safety and belonging, rich learning experiences, development of skills, habits, and mindsets, integrated support systems, whole systems support for community at large, and then broader growth of measurement for learner, school, and district success. And so I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Those are all things that we've needed for a while. More whole learner, being able to really accommodate those different needs and skills of each one of those learners. And that's just going to be a pretty important impact of that. So right now, when you go to one single school to one single district to a private school to a charter school, every single system's ratings are different from the learner to the school to the district. And that's going to be having a more holistic view. So looking at every single piece as a part of the machine in which makes the school systems work. We know that students are leaving the public school system to go to other entities, private, charter, either grant-based, kind of leaving to get a better education. And so we want to be able to focus and make sure that everyone knows that they are valued inside of the system itself. Then you have future driven. So this approach here has been usually more standard. Usually it's driven by budget. And usually we just continue to do the same compounding effect year after year. So these are forward-leaning practices. They've kept schools that are still tethered to that agrarian calendar, industrial bell schedule, the same sort of schedule that they've had for years and years and years that we have seen has not really made the biggest impact for where we are today in our present world. A simple example of this is, do we really need to go to school 5 full days? I think anything that we can learn from the pandemic is that you can actually do more impactful learning in shorter bursts, and it doesn't have to be done all in person. You can have rotating schedules, and with those rotating schedules gives teachers the ability to deeper dive with students and also gives a little bit more flexibility to everyone. The way that the school system had been designed previously is you had certain breaks designed to support the agrarian society. Now, we don't have an agrarian society any longer. That's just not the way the world works. So do we need to continue to operate in this manner? I think there has to be a mindset shift for everyone involved within all of these school systems. And then another part of that, making sure that there is no learner marginalized, that's going to be having some sort of demonstration sites. Now, I think this is one of the best things to come out of this report is that you have basically 3 different types of sites. You have your lighthouse sites, which are your exemplary. Everyone goes to visit. They take some learning cues from them. Then you have your aspiring. Those are the ones that are kind of in the middle, kind of gearing towards that lighthouse. And then you have emerging. So those sites they're starting to become on the journey to the lighthouse. So a quote that I took from this is, "We as a nation are painfully divided and facing series of systematic and cultural crises. The COVID-19 pandemic laid bare profound issues that we've known about for decades but have only addressed with minimal success." And we can see that from how every single year, school budgeting is exactly the same. We don't reconsider positions. We don't lighten workloads. We are not really making any changes. We just continue to do the same thing year over year over year. And what the pandemic did, it shined a huge light on everything in the education system and put everything under a microscope, and to really see an epic breakdown of how it's not really servicing our teachers, it's not servicing our staff, it's not servicing our parents, and most importantly, it's not servicing our students. And so to do this, we have these certain levels of lighthouses. And so, these certain levels of school systems. And these lighthouse sites are going to be really important, and that's going to drive systematic change, making sure that national and local level, everyone can look to it. And so it's really going to be a way to unify each of the schools and public school systems. Right now, everything operates so independently from one another, and it's really hard to see, even within a district itself, where the lighthouse is. Where we are after COVID is everyone is an emerging site where you're trying to figure out best practices, new demonstrations, and really trying to lift the students up. And this really put both teachers, students, and staff, and all the educational leaders leaders in the same boat, which we never had that before. But it also served for us to understand that there are some really fundamental changes that need to happen, and we need to all work together as a cohesive nation to be able to solve this together. We have these specific practices, and then together the framework is decided of how they're going to basically move to the next step. So that means to integrate this whole learner vision, being able to test it with the district's culture, embedding it into their strategic plans, revising board policies and procedures to be able to align with a whole learner culture, conduct needs assessments to identify and identify assets and opportunities. We know that the state standardized testing has done nothing except for to just put stress and fractures on the school systems themselves. But there's a lot of other ways in which students can showcase mastery, as well as teachers and as well as school districts. So it's going to be identifying that. Everyone needs to come together to the table to identify what that's going to look like. We need to make sure that our students are future ready, wherever kind of workplace they choose to go into. Right now, they're coming out of school with a huge loss. They're not really prepared for the real workplace, whether that be financial literacy, all the way to learning how to grocery shop, to just basic essential needs of applying for jobs and kind of manifesting what today's world looks like within our school sites. And then really being able to build capacity within the pipeline. So how can we, make sure that the adults that are within the systems themselves, that we're able to make sure that there's more diversity in the pipeline, that there's more representation of each of the different types of diversity that we have here in our country, and then making sure that the students are able to kind of feel that on a more global scale. And another thing that came out of COVID, and something that not only do these school superintendents, but I think everyone realizes, is that we really needed to create a better window for our parents. Parents had been locked out of the buildings, kind of with blackout blinds, not able to look in and see exactly what students have been doing and how they're progressing and what kinds of needs they've needed. This really opened an opportunity for us to be able to better communicate, not only with our community by bringing in community leaders and developing internships and partnerships, but being able to really, bring our parents in as stakeholders, as they should be. One part that I really found that this report, there was a lot of good that came from this report coming together, utilizing community, revamping the way that we are assessing our students and our staff, and really creating, high quality instruction for all students, making sure that we have not only print, but video resources, making sure that if something happens, students can stay at home and learn, restructuring the school day, simple things like changing. We know that students in middle school and high school function better when they have later school days and they have higher performance. So just kind of a simple adjustment of those things were some things that really came out from this survey that I definitely agreed with. And I think that this is the opportunity right now for everyone to come together and really focus on this and really have a national cohesive unit. And the more that we can work together and create a more collaborative space, the better off it's going to be for our students. There shouldn't be a disadvantage coming from one state to another, from one district to another. All of our students, leaders, and everyone should feel supported in that same way. You shouldn't have one person shining so much brighter than everyone else. We should all be shining. Now, we know that's never going to be fully the case, but we should all be working towards being the lighthouse. Now, where the survey really misses the mark for me is when we're talking about future ready. So in here, a big part of this is becoming future ready and being able to make sure that our students have exactly what they need. There is something to be said for expanding and diversifying the pipeline. But what we don't see here within this future ready system, of which they're looking for, is future-driven approach that encompasses the learners of today are different from the learners of the past. We know that we are in a serious paradigm shift, but what I didn't see in this survey was we are preparing our students for what industry should look like, making sure that we're creating more of a diverse pipeline for students and teachers and being able to give them more access to opportunity. In this report, it doesn't say anything about connecting with industry leaders. If we don't connect with industry leaders and bring our industry leaders into the classroom, anyone who's leaving from the classroom to try to go into industry can tell you right away that there is a pretty big discrepancy between the two. What happens is we know that our students are leaving and they're not getting ready for industry, and we're not yet bringing in those players to our students. If we don't start connecting more so on a community scale and bringing those students in, we are going to put them at a serious disadvantage and continue to be at a serious disadvantage. We'll never be able to keep up with the way that the technology is moving, but we can give them, our students, skills that they need to thrive for this world that we do live in. A lot of this report talks about just paying attention to the rapid technological advancements, but doesn't really have a steady plan for how to really interact with that. I love the idea of these lighthouse sites and all the other things that they're providing, but really missing the mark with this future-driven. Something that they did note in this report about being future-driven is being able to give teachers the ability to take professional development that is future-driven. What has happened during COVID-19 is that it has put even the most technologically inept people and has forced them to become more technological. And this, in turn, has really helped our students thrive, seeing and giving them the tools that they needed to actually succeed. In the parts of being able to prepare students for what the world offers, we do need to take a window into what it's like in the past. So often we cover up things like Nazi Germany and civil rights and all of the things that has made our country what they are. And by hiding those and mirroring them and banning books and different things that we've done over this, we've actually put everything in the shadow. And now our students don't even know anything that has happened in historical time because we spend so much time covering them up. Another takeaway that I have from this is modern learners have different aspirations and expectations from those of previous generations. In turn, what motivates them is in many ways different from what excited us from when we were in school. Empowering today's learner to co-author their personal learning journeys that will lead them to multiple post-secondary options and opportunities will engage and drive them to achieve. It's time that we put our students in the driver's seat to their own educations. We so often force feed rather than letting them take the opportunity, and the more opportunity that's given, the greater that they're able to succeed. If you haven't checked out this report released by the AASA, I highly recommend it. Again, I've listed it below in the show notes. There's a lot of great takeaways that has been put together, and you can tell a lot of thought leadership, a lot of conversations has happened. In much larger school districts, we've seen that they have been taking more innovative approaches. So it's great to see them coming together and putting out something for our school systems, kind of a roadmap. Now it's going to be on them to figure out how we can get everyone together on this roadmap to be able to thrive at a much higher level. I would love to hear your thoughts on what you think about this report. Do you think it's something that are they on the right page? Have they missed the mark? What parts do you think can be improved? And how can we get our students, lift everyone within this educational school system, educational landscape up together to provide them with the greatest success for future ready learners? We'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for following along on this journey. My name is Lena Saleh, the Edtech Guru. Please remember to like, share, subscribe, and comment below. And until next time, bye.